God is well able to see ahead of time what's coming, and He prepared us. And now I can look back and look at how He shaped us. And one of the things He did was really gave us a healthy view of all that was going on in the land. So I know all of you as pastors would have had all sorts of theories and experts, all these medical brilliant people in your church you never knew you had, who were just a sum and fount of all wisdom. So you had all of that, but God prepared us. But not only that, He gave me a series of messages looking back. Now I realize He said, your people need this. You don't know it, but they're going to need it. Because the whole lot, well, not a whole lot of them, but a large portion of them are about to go through, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. They're about to go into that, your whole church. And so what I want to share to you is one of these messages. I've tailored and adjusted it for here today, but it's just that message. And that is, it's real, as I say, we haven't compared notes, but you'd think we have. I want to look at Christ as I am. And in the context of I am the way. And there's a song that everyone loves, Waymaker. And we just get that on heaps. It's such a beautiful, beautiful song. But where I want to start with is in Exodus chapter 3. And this has happened. Moses has fled Egypt. He's been in the wilderness for a long time. And again, much like, although his is a lot more grand than what I've been through, but Moses doesn't realize it at the time, but God has been preparing him for what's about to come. And after 40 years of the wilderness, he is there and he's on the mountainside and he sees this bush and he notices it's on fire, but it's not being consumed. And so something in him says, I must now turn aside and see why this thing burns. And so he does. And then the voice comes from within the bush, begins to speak to him, and God in His holiness is there and tells Moses, take off your shoes, for the place you are standing is holy ground. And then follows a conversation where God is commissioning Moses to go and to lead his people out of Egypt. And Moses asks the $1 million question, and he says, I can go to your people, but who shall I say is sending me? What name shall I give? And this is what God says to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. This is the first time God reveals Himself by name to planet Earth as I am. And I want to look at that, because the beautiful thing about God revealing Himself as I am is that God as I am to every single one of us, and it depends on the context of what we're going through and how He reveals Himself as I am. And I want us to really capture this, because this is the part that just so stirs my heart. No matter where I find myself, the darker it is or the more extreme it is, that will be the clue of how God is going to reveal Himself. I want you to really get that. Okay, for example, it's like if we're just moving into a state of fogginess or confusion or you're just unsure, then we're going to hear God begin to say, I am wisdom. And it's that context that begins to set the platform, as it were, for how God is going to make Himself known to us. These are just some of the ways where God reveals Himself as I am. And then I'm just going to go after I am the way. There'll be a time in your life where God reveals Himself as I am grace. We might be going to meet someone and it's been a journey and a challenge for us to go there, but we realize, oh, Lord, I don't know if I can. He said, I can, I'll be with you. And He says, I'll be with you as grace. And He'll do that. There'll be a time, and this certainly was strong for us, where we're going through this and people are running these very real fears, because some of our old people got it as well. And I had six of my grandchildren were tested positive. So as a grandparent, that's a pretty scary place to be in. But God revealed Himself as I am hope. And you can't shake that. There's something in you that says it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right. And there's nothing you can hang your head on apart from it's that assurance of faith in us, that the Spirit of God in us is saying, I am hope to you. And people say, why do you have hope? I say, I just do. What's your big answer? I just do. And they want some bit more detail. Well, I can't give it. Just that I am hope has said that He is in me, and I now have His hope. One that we all love, and this is probably more of a motorway one. I am patience. He can be that. Funny enough, when I drive sometimes, I kind of drive at the kind of, well, shall we say, the finer edge of where we ought to be. But sometimes I actually feel, this might sound stupid, but sometimes when I'm driving and I'm probably going a little bit quick, I actually feel like a restrainer. In me, it's like a patience and a calmness comes in, and but no. I mean, that sounds weird, but that's the best way I can explain it. But in a lot of situations we find ourselves, you'll find this calming hand begin just to invade our now. And it's God, I am patient. There are times where He reveals Himself, I am comforter, I am wisdom, I am love, I am strength, Amen. I am peace. Whatever the context, this is such a brilliant verse. Whatever it is we're going through, God is more than able to reveal Himself as I am in that setting. That's where we find Him. So you're thinking, where's God in that? My first question to you is, describe your situation. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, God will be the opposite to that. He will be the lifeline that reaches into that. I feel I'm in total darkness. Okay, get ready for God as I am the light. Get ready. He's about to show up. The setting is now set for you. And this is what it is. So this verse comes out of John 14:6, where Jesus declares, I am the way. I am the way. And this is such a beautiful thing, because there are plenty of times where we need Him to reveal to us the way, because we just don't know it. What is the way? And I would never have guessed that I preached this 3 weeks before our people desperately needed to know God as the way. And so when I look back, I'm thinking, wow, I thought that was a very specific word, God. That kind of felt a bit more detailed, more than normal. How come? And now I realize. But the background of the verse is where Jesus is speaking and says, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and welcome you into my presence, so that you also may be where I am. You know the way to that place where I'm going. Lord, said Thomas, we do not know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the light. No one comes to the Father except through me. Amen. And Thomas, in so many ways, is like a trap we all fall into. And it's a bit like, as Darren was sharing with the eye, we can become so accustomed to normal. This is what life looks like. This is the way I see things. And Thomas had become so accustomed to doing life with Jesus, he hadn't. I'm a fan of, I'm one of those naughty Netflix ones. I love Lion King, and in Lion King, the first one, there's Rafiki, and he's doing this wisdom, and he's saying, I'll show you your father, and he looks into the pond, and he says, he's not there, it's just myself. And he goes, look harder. It touches the water. Very close too, very close. But he says, look harder. And in a sense, sometimes, we've just got to acknowledge, God, I'm looking with eyes of flesh. I'm looking with the natural. God, I humble myself right now. I cannot see as I ought. Open my eyes that I might see. And we would be amazed at what we see. Thomas had just seen Jesus as a pretty impressive guy, but doesn't appear to have gone beyond that at this point in his journey of faith. And so Thomas is told that if you have seen me, you've seen the Father. But up until then, it was just all the natural. It was a very limited way. And Jesus makes Himself known as the way, which also means He is the road, He is the journey, He is the way that we make our progress. And so I'm going to just quickly run through these 7 things. One is, He is our miraculous divine intervention. Again, we just heard that before. He is the way, and we get that through humbling ourselves. He is the way as we release our self-reliance. He is that as we desire to live righteously. He is that as we are aware of the snare of the enemy. He does it by us taking up our cross daily. And finally, He is the way when we remember where home is. And it's such a powerful, powerful thing. So one of the things, I just want to open up with this one here. He reveals Himself as the way by way of literally a miraculous divine intervention. In other words, in our mind, we've done the numbers, so to speak. We've looked out, we've seen the lay of the land, we've seen what's happening, and we come up with not possible. Feed it into the computer, answer, not possible. And it's that way. That song we sing, Waymaker, I mean, the line itself says, you made a way when what? When there was no way. That's our God. And I'm going to come back to this one just in a moment, but think of Israel backed up to the Red Sea. Do you think they saw a harbour bridge? Or they saw that, oh cool, you've got those steamers, they're in right by the beach. Excellent. Do you think they saw that? No. But it's when we think there is no way, I really want to encourage you, get ready. We serve a supernatural God who communicates supernaturally and will open up when others are looking on. I was just sort of in a sense thinking about, I think it was Elisha and his servant. Elisha saw God in all things that he did. His servant was a servant to Elisha, but it was just a job. And so Elisha gets up and the armies are surrounding and they come to get him. And he says, look who's around me. I got better stuff. I got angels and chariots. The servant couldn't see that. It was just a job. He's walking by sight. And sometimes we can become so accustomed to that. Isaiah 43:19 says this, behold, I'm about to do something new. Even now it is coming. Do you not see it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert. This is how our God operates. He's going to make a way. It appears closed, it appears this is not going to happen, but He is getting ready to do what only God can do. We're so, I catch myself, I'm so caught up by sight. If I do that equals that. I think, yeah, but where's the breath of God? And where is that divine intervention when He does so well? He is always raising us up. Jesus, as resurrection, is always doing this. And one of the things I've found is that certainly going through what we've just been through, people have found an inner strength they did not know that they had. That God, and they all had to journey this. We did it together, but when you go to sleep at night, that's just your time. And you're shutting your eyes and what's going on in your heart. Each of them found God making a way for them. And this is such a beautiful thing. And as I said before, the problem sometimes in reading the Bible is that we can read the whole story, say, in 3 or 4 minutes. Alright, you think, oh, that's cool. I said, yeah, but we missed the tension. Picture this. You're here, the Tongans have been in Egypt with the Israelites, and they've joined them. And they are now moving to this place to meet with God in the wilderness. Yes, this is good, awesome, praise the Lord. And suddenly you hear the ground begin to shake. And you think, okay, we've got the sea behind us. Can't see any boats there. There's no bridge. And the ground is shaking. What's that dark cloud on the horizon as this vast army of chariots is coming toward us? See, we read that, we know how it turns out. But put yourself in them, they did not. It hadn't been written yet. And often that's my story where we are backed up against something, the noise is coming towards us, and you as the leader, your people looking at you going, Pastor, you told us to be here, we're here, not looking promising, no. I can hear a lot of noise, and there are things coming towards us. And then God shows him the way. He says, stretch out your staff. And then a wind comes and it parts. And God makes a way. And He will do this. And I just assure you, you and I are going to face this again and again and again. And if we humble our heart and say, God, I look to you. You made a way through the Red Sea. You can do it again. And then you watch what He does. You watch what He does. And that leads on to the next one, which is we humble ourselves. And it's through kind of that we find the way. There's something beautiful about acknowledging, I think I'm wrong here. I grew up watching, I don't know if you did, but Happy Days. Who remember, anyone here watched Happy Days with the Fonz? Hey. One thing, he could never say sorry. I was rude. He could never do it. And, it was just outrageous. And sometimes we really find that such a difficult thing. But right through the Bible, the great acts of our patriarchs and of our forefathers, the great acts were done as they fell on their face. Moses did it. before God when he said, Moses, step aside, I'm done with these people. The judgment is already on its way, and he makes a way for them by getting down really low and before God. Job does it. When he repents before God, he said, I thought I was the man, I was righteous, and everyone looked up to me, and now I see myself and I repent in dust, cloth, and ashes. God makes a way, and he's twice as blessed on the other side, but he had to go low first. And this is what happened. King David does it multiple times. You don't have to read far into the Psalms where David humbles himself, and then suddenly the heavens shake as God himself comes down and does what only he can do. Zechariah does it, and out of that, it's his salvation when Jesus says, I'm going to your place to eat. And I'm sure that Zechariah was hated as a tax collector, that people would mutter everywhere he went. They'd be saying stuff, and yet here is this person, obviously the crowds loved him, saying, I'm coming to be with you. And that was a huge thing. That had such an impact that he humbles himself and before Jesus and says, look, if I've taken money of someone, I restore fourfold. And if I've done this, I give back more. And he humbles himself, and he does it there. The same thing, the woman who for all her life has been scorned, and that she's a woman of the night and she has no reputation. But something she thinks, well, if I can run the gauntlet of those people there and get in there, if I do that, I think there's hope for me. And she does. She crawls across the floor and she washes Jesus' feet with her tears in her hair. And she's made whole. There's something powerful as Jesus as the way when we humble ourselves. And I love the analogy of the water and the salt, because when we humble ourselves on this side of it, it feels really hard and what we're going to lose. But when we do it well, we feel refreshed and clean. Who hasn't done it? Well, you've done it, you think, man, that was tough, but I feel free because of that. All of that stuff I was carrying is gone. And now Jesus has made a way because we humbled ourselves. Another way, third one, is that he makes a way by us not being self-reliant. Again, there's a balance we need to strike here, but you know and I know in our hearts when our confidence is in ourselves. It's in our best laid plans where we think, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. A number of you here have done missions. I still find missions quite frightening. I go to Africa and you speak to huge big crowds. You feel like, Lord, what am I supposed to say to these people who have been through a genocide? Yes. What message have I got that you haven't already put in there? And I just felt the Lord says, get out there. I'm with you. Just speak the word I put in your heart and watch what God does. So it is a real place of vulnerability. Jesus taught about the camel going through the eye of a needle, and really it's that sense with the rich man with his wealth. He said, it's not your confidence in that. It's your confidence in who he is. And that's a beautiful thing. It's just that, Lord, I know you love me, and I know you have a plan, I know you have this, and I get down nice and low. The book of James tells us that if we lack wisdom, let's get nice and low and say, okay, God, I gave it my best shot. It really fell well short, but I need your wisdom here. God, I've just tried myself, and it's just not happening. And don't doubt that God will give us the answer, and he will lead us to do what is right, not something that feeds ourselves. And it's just a place that, we walk by faith and not by sight. And it is such an easy thing to be tempted and falling into. Oh, I can see this and I know this. We just don't want to do that. It's just not the way that it is. Okay? One of the things I've done a lot of times is you sort of feel pressed in all around you and you're really, really uncertain. But again, there's something strong that God releases when, and saying to my leaders with me, they've kind of got used to it now, but I'll say, look, we're going to be okay. How do you know? I just know. But they want the details of the plan. Don't have it. Well, what happened? I humbled myself before God and said, Lord, I don't know my left hand from my right hand, and you've asked me to lead. What are you saying, Lord? Just go. Okay, I'll go. What did he tell you? Just go. Go where? I don't know. Just go. And it's kind of because really what's happened is the life of the Spirit is now recentered within us. And our hope is there. And He'll give us enough, because we all know that if He gave us too much information, many of us would never have signed up. How many of you knew that leading a church was going to be like it is? No one told you that. They said it's marvelous. We're serving the Lord. Everyone's wonderful. There's no fighting. And everyone just gets on so well. It's just a joy and a blessing. And, you're just feeling the goodness of God all the time. Now, I love what I do, but there's a lot of things no one told me about. But there's something powerful when I just go. And so that real sense of my confidence is in Him. I know you've all preached this and heard this a lot. Luke 8, 22, 24, where Jesus simply said, let's go to the other side. Do you notice when He said that, He didn't say, oh, by the way, I'm going to be asleep in the boat. There's going to be waves probably about 15 to 20 feet high. There's going to be a 40-knot wind. And I don't know if you packed your nappies, but you might need to. But I'm going to be sleeping because I'm looking forward to it. I'm so tired. I want to have a rest. So we're going to the other side. He didn't say that. All they got was, let's go to the other side. So the promise of getting there was in Him simply saying that. We're going to the other side. That's it. And that's where people get really frustrated by believers, because they want more detail and answers, and all we say is, I just know. You go, well, the Lord said we get to the other side, so that's it. But what about that? I don't know, but I know that He said we're going the other side, so we're going to be okay. And whatever I need at the time, He will give it. And He does that. The disciples, obviously, they wake up and they're in a great panic. And they say, Master, we're perishing. Jesus got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they subsided and all was calm. Where is your faith? He said. You see, what did they try and do? Self-reliant. Let's get that rigging sorted. Let's really row. Come on, let's row, boys. Row. Put you back into it. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Not happening. And He said, look, the answer was asleep in the boat. I said we're going to the other side. That was it. And so there's something, when you feel you're at the end of yourself, let this just really encourage you. Get ready, because you're about to find the door to a new part of what God is going to show you. That's where you find it. You don't find it when everything's easy and comfortable and it's all plain sailing. It's going to come when you're thinking, I'm now at the limit of what I know. I'm now at the limit of my strength. This is where God says, excellent, you're ready. And then He'll do that. Amen. Another way He makes Himself known as the way is when we have a desire to live righteously. And I mean a real sincere desire just to walk like Him. And it kind of becomes more clear. You see, again, we go through this, but there'll be experiences you and I go through where we want to position ourselves, and it's a subtle thing. We want to look good, we want to look right. We want to do all of that because appearances is important. We're the pastor, we're the leader, we're going to look just right. And yet sometimes that is not a reason in itself. That's kind of shaky ground. When we sort of think like that, we think, oh well, if I just do that, then all's going to be okay. But if we have a genuine, Lord, I want to do right because right is right, you watch what He does in us. The way will be phenomenal. The great story of Solomon, 2 Chronicles 1, 7 to 12, is where God comes to Solomon in a dream and basically says to him, ask whatever you want and I will give it to you. Somewhere in Solomon's heart was a sincere desire to do right by God. And he says, he could have asked for anything. But he simply says, Lord, I need wisdom to lead this great people of you, for who can lead them and who can do that. And God is hugely honored and impressed with that and tells him so and says, because you haven't asked for your enemies, because you haven't asked for great wealth or fame, you're going to get that as well. But I'll give you wisdom, and that's the thing that set him apart from everybody else. So when we choose to do right, and sometimes it really hurts, at least on this side of the cross it does, and we want to do right, but if we can do something that's right, because in God we know it's right, you might not have the people understand you at the time, but God will give you that assurance in your heart, and you're going to be okay. And you're going to there's going to be more of you and more of God in you at that moment. It almost seems like, is that really the way it is? It is. The word that comes to mind is called resurrection. It's the new us. It's the new you. So one of the things, I find this a bit frustrating, because you hear some people say it like this: I just tell them straight. I just tell them as it is, as though that's a virtue. Because I actually freaked out my congregation telling this one, but that's kind of partially right, but it's more than that, because Jesus is not just the truth, he's also the way. So when we just speak the truth, it's important to remember he is the way. We cannot separate the truth from the way. So when I speak the truth, there is a way to do it. Alright? So it's not just the truth on itself, because the devil can do that. He does it all the time. That's why the Bible says, agree with the adversary. He can do it all the time. Point out faults. That's not hard. But who can do it the way? What is the way? Haven't you ever, when you read the Gospels, you look at how Jesus interacted with his disciples. One of the ones that really makes you scratch your head is his relationship with Judas. At no point does he openly ever rebuke Judas. The closest we get is when he says, what you do quickly, do now. So in other words, he is exemplifying and modeling the life, even though he sees what's in Judas's heart. He's doing that. So just knowing a thing doesn't mean it has to be spoken and said. There is a way of which how we are to operate. The other thing too, I think it's Corinthians, all of us appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Right? Okay, you're all right. Some people say the great white throne judgment. No, it's the judgment seat of Christ for believers. That's where we go. The primary purpose is to look at the way in which we've been a believer. Not the what, the way. The what kind of journey it's been. So, oh Lord, I told them, okay, yes you did. Let's put to the fire the way. We did that. And that really guards us. And the easiest way to flip it around, well, how should I do it? Well, and do to others as you have them do to you. So if I want to know the right way, I think if someone had to correct or rebuke or challenge me, how would I like them to do it? Well, I'd like them to be nice for starters, and then say nice things, and to do it almost apologetically. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone corrects me, I'd like to say, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I remember once, as a young believer, I had to challenge my senior pastor because he'd done a couple of really, really silly things. And I just thought, I've got to say something. And how I spoke it was something like this. Look, I want us to talk about, all I wanted to do was him to talk to me about this particular issue. And I said, look, I want to talk about this. Now you could say this about my life, and you'll probably be right. But I'm not here to talk about that. Can we just talk about this? And I just think, so nice and low. Okay, there's a way. And if we are determined to be reconciled, to do right, God will make a way. So if our heart is, Lord, I'm doing this in love and I want to be gracious and I want to do it in a way that I want someone to do this to me, there'll be a way there for us. And I think this is really, really important. This one, okay, we'll power it through. The way is being aware of the snare of the enemy. Okay? All of us have wrestled and will wrestle with temptation. Okay? No pious looks and go, who's he talking about? Who, me? No, that must be a Journey Church thing. That must be someone else. But all of us are wrestle with this. But Jesus will make himself known as the way even in that. Listen to this in 1 Corinthians 10:13. The temptations, we could expand that word and say the testings. Okay, testings in your life are no different from what others experience. But God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation, the testings, to be more than you and I can stand. And when you are tested, He will show you a way out so you can endure. So, what I want to say is when you've got that storm brewing, there's this moment where it hangs in the balance. You know what I'm talking about. Which way will I fall? Do I turn to God and go low and fall from opportunities to vent and be really angry and cut loose or do whatever I've got to do? Or do I go the other way? But there's that. Do you know what I'm saying? Or is am I speaking in tongues here? Okay? But there's this moment. And sometimes it's a bit longer. God gives us grace, but there's a moment where we're kind of in the balance. One of the things I've found is that even when the temptation is to really think, oh man, that's done it now. It's there, even our feeble glance that says, Lord, I know I should not respond that way. As feeble as that is enough to catch God's attention, and He will light up the way. So when He makes the way to get out of testing, get out of temptation, it requires from us a willingness to actually look for it. Okay? No good just bashing on, just cut loose and let it all hang out. It's I want to look for it, and God's going to make it. He's going to show it, and we're going to be able to do that. And I think this is a really, really important thing. But you watch what He does. There's been so many times where either my thoughts about to run away, or either someone will get I'll get a phone call, or someone will ring up and say, hey, look, I'm just coming around for a coffee. And I'm thinking, that was perfect timing. God's the master of it. He really does it. Amen. Number 6, we find the way of Jesus by taking up our cross daily. Jesus said, I am the way. When we take up our cross, lay down our life, and let Him resurrect us. All right? I cannot count the number of times where my best encounters with God has been on the flip side of a really challenging moment. And it's so, so important. Again, God, as I said right at the start, I am has a context. And it's the way to find that context is, where do you find yourself? If you're in darkness, He's going to come as the light. Gosh, I'm going through this. But He does that. And when I say, Lord, I'm going to do this, when I lay it down and think, okay, Lord, whatever's on the other side, I don't know where I'll be this time next year. But I'm okay in that. I really am. I'm thinking, Lord, whatever that is, I'm all good. I'm trusting in You. I want to lay it down. There's that take up your cross. There's that realizing we're a part of something much bigger. So as a community of churches, you've got something much bigger than yourself that God is calling you into. And He's preparing you for that. He's shaping you for that. And He's going to bring you into that. And the last one I want to say, and this is just, I love this one. With Jesus as our way. I am the way. Hallelujah. We find that way when we remember where our home is. We remember where our home is. And I love that. It's that sense of just bringing us home. And the great example of this is the prodigal son. We find ourselves in our journey of faith in those prodigal moments where we've done life, we're doing things, but somehow we've just drifted. And reading the Word or spending time in worship or prayer or fellowship or even amongst other believers isn't quite what it used to be. Something's gone wrong. Something's got in. And we're just not sure what. Well, the prodigal went through that. He obviously thought, well, I don't think I like that life. I'm going to cash it out and go and do my own thing. But it goes to say that, we know the story, it just goes down, down, down. He spends it all on all the wrong kind of living. Everything's bad. And eventually he finds himself up feeding the pigs. And he says this. Finally he comes to his senses and said, how many of my father's hired servants have plenty of food? But here I am starving to death. I will get up and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. Now Jesus uses this parable as a demonstration of bringing back to remembrance the prodigal son. He remembers his father. And this is how God opens up the way to bring us back to Him. He reminds us where home is. Where we're going through whatever it is we're going through. And there's an ache in our heart. I went for a long drive before this all lockdown stuff all happened. But I just really wanted to recapture that moment. Just spend some time with God. And gosh, it was just so incredible, where God just put so much stuff, and He just put a whole lot of things into my heart. And one of the things I think that I want us to really capture is the Father, when He sees His Son. It's, again, very undignified for a man to run and bare his legs, but that's what He did. How much of the, based on what the Father said, how much do you think He actually even hears what the prodigal is even saying to him? He says, Father, I've done this, 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 this. What does the Father say? Oh, no, you're right about that. You missed a few. He doesn't. He hears none of that. And it's revelation of God's heart to us. He says, look, where's the ring? Where's the shoes? Where's the robe? Where's the fatted calf? We're going to celebrate. And we don't realize that in our darkest moments, the celebration of heaven is only a breath away for us. When we feel we're so far away from God, God's heart is revealed in the story of the prodigal. Is so powerful. Would the son have known that a party was just over the horizon? That the people would gather again, that he'd be restored to his Father instantaneously? Because that is Jesus as I am the way home. And He does that for you and I. Wherever we find ourselves, He is the way home. And all we do is believe God is good. He loves us. He's given His life for us. And He sees our shortcomings. He sees all of that, and He brings us back. He is Waymaker and brings us back to Himself. You'll have people you're leading who feel like they've lost the way. They hear the story of the Father's heart and they come home. This is what our God does for us. And my closing verse, and again, this was, we didn't compare notes, but he used almost word for word. Revelation 3. The church of Laodicea. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. That's the heart of our God. We were created. The Trinitarian language of Father, Son, Spirit, we're invited into that. So in other words, heaven won't rest until we're into that cycle of life that exists within God, and He wants to bring us into that no matter where we find ourselves. Jesus makes the way possible to come back in and enjoy that life. And He said, come on, open up. Open up your heart. Open it up for me, and I'll bring you in. He says His yoke, that which is placed on horses for crops and so forth, or tow the carriage, He said His yoke is easy and His burden is light. Jesus is our way. I am the way. Wherever you find yourself, know that all we have to do is in our heart and all sincerity, here I am, God. Here I am. And He will light it up. Amen. Amen.